Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. Today's Monday, so it's book club day, and yes, we are still reading Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. We are actually in the last chapter right now, chapter 10, and if you're just joining, this is the first time you're coming across this, no problem. Literally every single discussion in this book is standalone. It is something that you could listen to and mull over literally every day for a year and get value from it every time, because as you shift, you'll get more and more out of what is discussed here. So this chapter is all about the new earth and how consciousness is shifting. And he said, I'm pulling from like the middle of chapter 10 because I thought it summarized what this is about really well. He said, we are in the midst of a momentous event in the evolution of human consciousness, but they won't be talking about it on the news tonight. Hey, Charlotte, good to see you. Guys, let me know if you're joining live. Let me know when you get here. And that little comment made me laugh because, the news, what does the news cover? The news just covers fear. It's clickbait headlines. It's like really not much that's going to give you value in your own life. It's not going to teach you anything you need to know about your inner world. It's really not going to teach you much. It's mostly going to make you feel like you don't have, or to be in fear, or all these things that are really just not helpful. And, remember, on a mass scale, the ego is playing out on a mass scale. So getting caught up in all these events in the world and everything else, it's just pulling you further and further into the world of form, which is the opposite direction of where we want to go. Yes, exactly, Charlotte. Nothing real. Nothing really that's important. Hey, Lou. Hey, Tina. So all right. So this part of chapter 10, this is like part 2 of 3 because we're doing about 10 pages at a time. So in my book, 288 is where we started. Awakening and the outgoing movement. So what he was talking about was this outward movement is a universal impulse. So remember, consciousness has made everything in this universe. And I sent that video, I guess it was last week, showing just like visually, because our brains cannot comprehend billions of years. But just, like your life is like half of a hair in the scale of like 4 miles or something like that. Like it's just very kind of insignificant, right? It's just a very small part of what's going on here. And what he's saying basically is that the universal impulse is to expand. It is to constantly expand. Hey, Karen. And that is exactly what's meant to happen. And humans are part of that expansion of consciousness into the universe. And the universe over these millions and millions of years has been evolving, right? It's been evolving on a physical level, and now it's evolving on a conscious level. And human beings have the gift of the ego, right? The gift to individualize, which is important because in order for consciousness to experience itself, it has to individuate. And so humans experience themselves as an individual. They're attached to form. They're attached, right? You are attached to this body. And what has happened, though, the unfortunate piece that we're all sort of suffering with right now and like kind of coming out of the illusion of is that the ego, it's very exciting, Charlotte, I agree. But the ego has basically been using expansion for its own expansion. So it's kind of like co-opted it, and it said, hey, this impulse to expand and create and get, right? The ego only has life when it's identified with forms or things, or it's feeling better than something else. So the ego has kind of gone out and gone nuts in this world of form, which like just look around the United States, really, and look around the world, period, right? It's kind of crazy, but it's necessary. It's a necessary part of the growth. And as awareness increases, so all of you right now are more aware, just simply, even if it's not making sense what we've talked about with this book, it's planted a seed. And that seed is going to grow with time for you to more and more understand what it means to be consciousness, not your ego, to be the witness, not involved in all the craziness of this world. And basically what happens is your ego stops running your life. You start to see these unconscious and automatic impulses that are the ego mind, and you start to go, whoa, why am I doing that? Let me just witness what's happening here. And thankfully, typically people have had to go through tragedy, loss, intense situations that the mind has become so unbearable that they pull themselves out of it, right? Like Eckhart Tolle, the author of this book, he talks about it. Like he was going to commit suicide and then had this moment because he said something like, well, who can't live with whom, right? And he was like, wait, who am I? And he realized, I'm the one witnessing this life and this crazy mind. I'm not the mind. And it put him into this blissful state for years. And that's the possibility that all of us have. But what's beautiful about right now, and I think, Charlotte, what's very exciting for all of us, is that because of the shift of consciousness on the planet right now, many people are not having to go through tragedy to wake up. You have the ability to decide to wake up and to just come out of this dream state, this trance that we've all been in, and kind of like pop out of the matrix, right? Like you have the ability to, and you have the ability to awaken to the spiritual dimension. We all have the ability to. And it's coming through more and more and more. So ego is starting to take the back seat for more and more and more people. I just I assisted in a training here at the Institute where I live, and it was amazing. Like over the last 5 days, I watched everybody come in, right? Coming from all of their worlds and travel and whatever in a very heightened state, ego's on, to by the end of it, it was like heart communion. People were in their witness self. They were in a totally different aspect of themselves, and it was just beautiful to be around that space and deeply healing for all of them and me. Right? That's the world we're trying to live in, right? I got to experience it, for 5 days. It was nice. But what has happened is that, human intelligence has been part of, right? We talked about how the consciousness has created the universe, and evolution has happened. And human intelligence was part of that evolution. But the ego has kind of taken human intelligence for itself, and it's put it in service of, as he says, madness, right? Like human intelligence has allowed us to be able to split an atom, but it's complete madness that then we use that to create, bombs that we then stockpile that will destroy the world. I mean, it's just nuts. Just thinking about where we are right now geopolitically, it's like nuclear war is being talked about. And it's like, do people, I don't think they understand. Like, that's the end. Why would any of us do that? Like, no one wins. It is just destruction. So why even have these things? It's madness. It's the ego, right? Always wanting to have a step up and not knowing that it's going to annihilate itself. So this is called egoic dysfunction, and we all have it. But once our intelligence starts to align with the universe, once we realize, oh, I'm not that thing, oh, I can drop that thing, I can be the witness, and we're in alignment, then human intelligence can be used in a very different way. On page, I think it was 289, he says, we become conscious participants in the creation of form. Let me put my notes here down. Is that going to fall? Yeah. We become conscious participants in the creation of form. It is not who we create, but universal intelligence that creates through us. It's not we who create. Sorry, I read that wrong. It's not we who creates, but it's universal intelligence that's creating through us. We don't identify with what we create, and so we don't lose ourselves in what we do, which so many of us lose ourselves in what we do, me included, right? You just become so absorbed with, oh, this is who I am, and, I got to get this and that, whatever. We are learning, right, that the act of creation, let me just stop on that because I just think it's that point in and of itself, right? Ego is all about outcome. Ego is all about acknowledgement and achievement and getting the awards and the recognition, right? That's what ego wants. But when you let go of those things and you just do for doing's sake, there's no struggle, there's no stress, there's no strain. My boyfriend has helped so many times in so many different ways in like reminding me that, hey, it's not about the outcome. In fact, right, you have no control over the outcome of something. Like, you need to fall in love with the process. You need to fall in love with just creating and doing for the sake of creating and doing. Like, I think I was making a thumbnail for YouTube and I was like getting all frustrated. And he's like, why are you doing that then? Oh, I gotta make it because I gotta get this video up and blah, 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 blah. People need to find it. And he's like, if you don't love what you're doing, stop doing it. Like, there's no point. Like, you're creating stress in your body. Fall in love with the creative process. Just enjoy the fact that you get to create. And who cares about what happens with the video? Like, it's not up to you. It took me a little while to digest that, but it's like it's such a profound shift, right? It's such a profound shift because it's not about what you're doing. It's about how you're doing it. And stress and struggle, right? It's not that you won't do hard things, but you won't strain yourself, right? You're going to be so in alignment. You've had times where you've been so immersed in a project that's taken like 14 hours of your day, like you're just in the project, and yeah, there was intensity, but you were so in flow, in enjoyment, in the moment, loving it, that it was hard, it was intense, but there wasn't stress, right? Versus when you struggle and strain and are pushing for something, like, put a 1 in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, you know the difference of these two things that I'm trying to articulate, right? When we do for this just the sake of creation itself, it's very different than when we do to try and get somewhere. Okay, so on 290, he has a bit of a warning. He says, if there is no change on the inner level, no amount of action will make any difference. We would only recreate modified versions of the same world again and again, a world that is an external reflection of the ego. Okay, I'm glad you guys are getting this. Yeah, so if we don't change how we're doing things collectively, then we're only going to keep creating, right? Because as within, so without. If our ego is involved in all we do, there's going to be more and more ego in the world. The only way to get rid of it, the world won't work at that level. You have to work at the inner level. You can't work at the outer level. There's too many dynamics at play. You can only work on the inner level. It's about shifting internally your way of being and how you show up and do all of the things that you do. All right? You've got to shift that. You've got to release your ego. Otherwise, we're recreating all the craziness. Okay? And then when you're in alignment and when you're in flow, what you're doing isn't in service of you, right? Just what the ego does. It is in service of humanity. It is in service of all species. It is in service of everything. Like you're bringing a different vibration onto this planet. When you are, like the space that we created over the last 5 days here, the peace, the open-heartedness, all of that brought into the environment around here a totally different frequency, which is felt and picked up. You can feel it. And that, I mean, I don't understand how it works. How far does that emanate out? I don't know. But I think it's very powerful when you bring the light of consciousness into something. We were doing yoga therapy, which some of you have taken my program and you've done yoga therapy. I was in a yoga therapy training teachers how to do it. And obviously they're practicing on one another and they're holding space. You're holding the light of consciousness, awareness, and shining it on people. And it is the most healing thing that can ever happen because it's like, light just gets rid of darkness. There's no struggle. It just, when you give it space, the darkness just moves out. The darkness being energy blocks, like all sorts. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but it's powerful. All I want to say is that it is palpable, it is powerful, and it is the most incredible space to be in. I want all of you to live there. Yeah, and it's hard to get in that mode unless you have tools and techniques, right? That's why I love to teach those tools and techniques like yoga nidra, yoga therapy. These were designed thousands of years ago to help people do this because this is not new knowledge. It's just that the ego has taken over more and more and more and more and more. We've gotten more and more and more and more disconnected from this knowledge and wisdom and how to access it. So, all right, getting back to the book. He talks about consciousness, and there's a whole section on consciousness and just helping people to understand consciousness was never born, it will never die. Consciousness has always been here, but consciousness is what's creating the universe. And it's going through this evolutionary impulse, right, that we're now a part of. And we kind of discussed these things. So, but I love what he said. He said, the human form was created for this higher purpose, and millions of other forms prepared the groundwork for it. Like, beautiful. I mean, just beautiful, exciting times. He says this could be described as the descent of the divine into matter. That's us. Isn't that wild to think about? The descent of the divine into matter. At that stage in the evolution of the universe, the entire outgoing movement takes place in a dreamlike state. Glimpses of awakening only come at the moment of dissolution of an individual form, that is to say, death, and then it begins its next incarnation, its next identification with form. Haven't you noticed, right? You probably have heard stories of like people when they're dying, there's peace about them, or they've just come to realize like, whoa, they're more than just body. And it's a beautiful thing. So I don't want to get too deep into that. He kind of gave some nice examples of that, but it's a wonderful thing. I want to talk about though, awakened doing. So how and why? So we are here in this form to bring consciousness into our actions. What does that mean? And how do we do it? I think that's probably the most exciting part of this section of the book, because this is the next phase, right? After we've been so identified with the ego, the next phase in all of this, as we move through the egoic dysfunction, it's kind of like a caterpillar completely just going away, dissolving into this crazy chemical mixture before it becomes a butterfly. It's like new consciousness is coming in as the old is going out. That's why right now it feels like chaos in the world. Yeah, because the ego, it's not going to give up without a fight, right? It happens inside of you and it happens outside in the world. So there is going to be this struggle, but it's an evolutionary impulse. And we can help it by aligning with that impulse. So on page 293, he says, the closer we get to the end of our present evolutionary stage, the more dysfunctional the ego will become. So just buckle your seatbelts and watch. Because within yourself and externally, it's coming. He says, I started today's book club with this. We are in the midst of a momentous event in the evolution of human consciousness, but they won't be talking about it on the evening news. On our planet, and perhaps simultaneously, in many parts of our galaxy and beyond, consciousness is awakening from its dream of form. This does not mean all forms of the world are going to dissolve, although quite a few might. It means consciousness can now begin to create without losing itself. This is why we're here. It's to learn the power of creation within us. The same power that created this entire universe works in and through us. It's what animates us. And it wants to know itself, which is why we're here, and then experience the world as itself, right? It's amazing. So that's what this next phase is all about. And why does it want to continue to expand and express? Because it needs a vehicle to experience it yourself, right? I always talk about Bruce Lipton because I just love his comment. When he was like contemplating, well, why am I even here? And consciousness, what he heard was, well, what does chocolate taste like? And he started laughing because he said, well, of course, like if you don't have a tongue to taste, you can't taste the creation of chocolate. You don't know what it is. We are those vehicles, right, that allow for that. So it's going to continue to expand. Why? Enjoyment. To enjoy. Why does, like, the plants outside, I was just looking at all my trees. We got like 60 trees outside, figs and lemons and all sorts of stuff. And they're just constantly expanding and expressing. Why? It's the impulse. It's just to continue to do that, and it'll just keep doing it, and it'll produce as much fruit as, it just keeps going. Why? For enjoyment, right? Because that's just the impulse of what it has to do. We have the same impulse. We've cut it off with our ego. Okay? We've completely cut it off. So, awakened doing. Let's explain this. So, page 294, I circled it, I started, I was like, this is the whole point of the whole book, okay? Awakened doing is the alignment of your outer purpose, what you're doing in the outer world, with your inner purpose, which is awakening to this consciousness, right? Through awakened doing, you become one with the outgoing purpose of the universe. Consciousness flows through you into this world. It flows into your thoughts, and it inspires you. It flows into what you do and guides and empowers you. And this is the part I circled and starred and was like, is everything. Now, it's not what you do, but how you do what you do that determines whether you are fulfilling your destiny. And how you do what you do is determined by your state of consciousness. I'm going to read it again because put a 2 in the chat if you've ever wondered, why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my destiny? What am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing it? Did I waste my life? Any thoughts like that, put a 2 in the chat. I don't know if it's just me. I guarantee you it's not just me. I think this every single one of us at some point when we've slowed down enough, we're like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing here? Like, isn't there more to life? Like, what is the purpose of all of this? We've wondered this, right? What am I supposed to be doing? Is this job? Is this career? Is this whatever, right? And I think the older you get, it's like you're starting to see less and less time on the end of your life available to you. So it's like you start to freak out. Okay, Charlotte and Karen at least are admitting to it. So yeah, okay, now the rest of you. All right. So again, listen closely. It's not what you do. There is no perfect job you're supposed to do. There isn't a career. There isn't something you're supposed to do. It's not what you're doing, but how you do that determines whether you're fulfilling your destiny. It's all in the how you're doing it. Are you doing it through being connected, or are you doing it through your ego mind? If you're doing whatever you're doing through your ego, you're missing your destiny. if you're doing it while connected to this conscious awareness, that's exactly what you're meant to be doing. Does that make sense? How you do what you do is determined by your state of consciousness. The current of consciousness is what determines the quality, right? Another way of putting it is, in any situation and in whatever you do, your state of consciousness is the primary factor. The situation or what you're doing is secondary, all right? So it's how conscious you are in whatever it is that you're doing that determines if you are fulfilling your destiny. Right? It determines the quality of the life you're having and the experience you're having. It's the state of consciousness. That is the primary thing. Whatever the heck you're doing is secondary. You could be consciously awake as a gas station attendee, right? And be fulfilling your life's purpose more so than, I don't know, Tony Robbins, right? Maybe Tony is in this state, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like you have to be some figure, you know, that's making some massive impact with humans in this world of form. No, you bring the light of awareness into everything you're doing. You bring that vibration and frequency onto this planet. And guys, higher frequencies cause others to vibrate to it, right? You attune to it. And so it pulls humanity up. It pulls this planet up. Does this make sense? This is huge. All right, so the bottom line is it's about how you're doing what you're doing. It's not about what you're doing. All right, so the question is, are you alert and attentive? Do you have awakened consciousness in your actions, or is your ego doing it? That's what matters. You know, he talked about, in a previous chapter, he talked about, maybe it was chapter 10, the guy that started a business, right? And spent 2 years stressing and straining and doing all this stuff and not being nice to his family. And, you know, but finally he has this product, he gets it out, and he has great success. That's egoic success. Because what did he do? For 2 years, he polluted the planet. He polluted his own body through stress. He polluted his family, and he polluted this earth through bringing in that frequency of stress and struggle and strain. That's not what life's about. It's not. All right? What it's about is going through the motions of everything with no attachment to the outcome. Right? It's just, you're just doing for the sake of doing, and what happens, you need to release. That's a key. He didn't talk about that. I'm telling you that. That is part of the spiritual teachings that have been around for thousands of years, is you have the right to action, not to the result of action. So it's about how you're doing it, right? It doesn't matter what you do. It's how you're doing it. You have the right to action. It's the how. That's the best part. So he talked about the 3 modalities of awakened doing. And we'll have time to discuss like one of them right now. Because the next part and the ending part of the chapter, or the whole book, will be the other modalities. But page 295, I'm gonna just read it to you because I just thought it was so well said. So the 3 modalities of awakened doing. There are 3 ways in which consciousness can flow into what you do and thus through you into the world. All right, 3 ways. And these 3 modalities in which you can align your life with the creative power of the universe. High five me and put a 5 in the chat if you want to do that. I certainly want to align myself with this universal impulse and power. All right. Modality means the underlying energy frequency that flows into what you do and connects your actions with awakened consciousness that's emerging in the world. So this is like how your adapter, right? How you get in there. Good. Charlotte's with me. We're doing this. Okay. What you do will be dysfunctional and of the ego unless it arises out of one of these 3 modalities. Drum roll, please, right? They may change during the course of a day, although one of them may be dominant during a certain stage of your life. Each modality is appropriate for different certain situations, and you'll know. Okay? The modalities of awakened doing are acceptance, enjoyment, enthusiasm. Okay? Acceptance, enjoyment, enthusiasm. That is what we are tuning to every moment of the day. Each one represents a certain vibrational frequency of consciousness. You need to be vigilant to make sure that one of them operates whenever you are engaged in doing anything at all. From the most simple task to the most complex. If you are not in the state of either acceptance, enjoyment, or enthusiasm, look closely and you will find that you are creating suffering for yourself and for others. Boom. So this week, I want you, maybe set an alarm on your phone, right, to just ping you and have one alarm say, am I accepting what is right now? Just like this little reminder, right? Am I in full acceptance to what is right now? And we'll talk about acceptance in a moment. You could have another ping and say, am I enjoying right now? And then another one, obviously, enthusiasm. Am I enthusiastic about what I'm doing right now? I'm enthusiastic about book club, right? I love it. And so that enthusiasm reaches all of you, which is why you're here or why you're listening, right? That is bringing on this frequency into this world. Great. I'm in alignment. That's what we're doing right now. And all of you are too. You're probably getting enjoyment out of this, right? That's why we're here. So we're all living our purpose right now. So let's talk. Who's going to do that? I just think it'll be really fun. Charlotte says, good idea. Yeah, I think it'll be really fun. You can put in the Telegram chat how it goes, but it's like the ego so quickly comes in. It's very sneaky. It's very tricky. It comes in all the time. It's so habituated in us. We're breaking the cycle, right? And so just whatever you can do to help break it and bring an awareness to it. So am I enthusiastic? Am I enjoying? Am I accepting? Simple questions to ask. And who wouldn't want to live in a state where you're enthusiastic, enjoying, and just accepting everything just as it is, right? Like a baby. When a baby comes into the world, it is just enjoying everything, right? It enjoys poop. It enjoys a flower. It doesn't know one thing is better than the other. It just enjoys it. It just plays in it, right? That's what we're talking about. It's in alignment. It accepts everything. Right now I'm screaming. Right now I'm crying. Right now I'm giggling. Right now I'm sleeping. It's just total in acceptance, right? It's enthusiastic about everything. It's enjoying. It's in alignment. That's how you get to live, all right? Let's talk about, we got a couple minutes left. We'll talk about the acceptance piece. He says, for now, acceptance is about realizing that for now, the situation is what it is, right? Whatever situation you're in, it's already arisen. It's already here. No point in resisting it. That's like hitting your head up against a wall because reality has already shown up. So for now, this is the situation. And so for the moment, this is what is required of me. And so I will willingly do it. That's what acceptance is. Okay? It's going, oh, the plane is delayed. I'm going to have to sit here in the airport. So I'm going to make the most of my time here and do it willingly. Make sense? Or I could sit here all pissed off and angry at the airlines for being incompetent and blah, 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 blah. Now they're going to lose my luggage and now I'm missing this. What are you doing? You're not accepting the moment. You're bringing bad energy into your own body and to the universe. Make sense? Okay, so the way I teach it, if you've taken Inner Management Mastery, right, this was the crux of the teaching, was just keep your heart open under more conditions. That's how I teach it. Just be open and accepting to everything. Your role is to just open your heart to whatever it is. All right, God's already here anyway. So it's going to make your life a lot easier. All right. Performing and acting in a state of acceptance means you're at peace doing it. All right. And that peace brings that vibration into this world. All right. Catch yourself. I mean, have you ever, like, you're washing dishes and you're just like, why am I only ever one that washes these dishes? Why don't somebody else do it? Or cooking or cleaning or whatever the thing is in your house, right? Some mundane task. And you'll watch yourself be in resistance to it while you're doing it. Stop. You're beating yourself up. You're bringing bad vibes into the world, okay? You can literally shift and change this planet and evolve consciousness through doing the dishes because it's about how you're doing it. All right, it's the energy and the vibration that flows into you and through you and out. All right, so I'm just going to read page 296 to finish this. Performing an action in the state of acceptance means you're at peace while you do it. And that peace is a subtle energy vibration that flows into what you do. On the surface, acceptance looks like a passive state, but it's not. In reality, it's active and creative because it brings something entirely new into this world. That peace, that subtle energy vibration is consciousness. That is how you're connecting in with consciousness. And one of the ways in which it enters this world is through surrendered action, one aspect of which is acceptance. If you can neither enjoy or bring acceptance to what you do, then stop. Otherwise, you are not taking responsibility for the only thing you can really take responsibility for, which also happens to be the one thing that really matters to your state of consciousness. And if you are not taking responsibility for your state of consciousness, You are not taking responsibility for life. All right? So this week, I encourage you, set those alarms. Am I accepting what is right now? Am I in enjoyment? Am I excited? Am I enthusiastic? Right? I think was his word. Enjoyment, enthusiasm, and acceptance. How to move from acceptance to enjoyment. An open heart. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, Russ. High five. Boom. Good timing. That's all you needed to know from today. So I can't believe it, but next week is the last week of book club, and we're going to get into enjoyment, and we're going to get into enthusiasm, and then we're going to get into whatever else he has to say. The frequency holders. I don't know. I haven't read it yet. So we're going to finish up the book next week, and then we'll figure out where we're going from there. So we'll do that. I will see you next Monday. Please set your alarms. Please share in Telegram how it's going. Let's bring these good vibrations into your world, into this world, and I look forward to hearing how it goes. Bye, guys.